Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 10th AATF Technology Tuesday webinar. And today it's brought to you by Shorrock Automation. Our webinar this morning is Iiot, Gateway for Remote Data and Access to Your Industrial Equipment. This webinar will focus on E1's Iiot, Gateway for Remote Data and Access to Industrial Equipment. It will elaborate on the protocol-independent Kpis, OEEs, alarms, and historization thereof. Our speaker today is Hendrik Fourie. Hendrik has a bachelor's degree in technology where he specialized in mechatronics, robotics, control systems, electronics, and automation engineering. With over 5 years' experience in automation and integration of the automotive sector, he has become an expert in his field. Today, Hendrik is the product specialist at Shorrock Automation, and his area of focus is in E1 products, technical demonstrations, and technical support across all sectors within Shorrock's Automation's product portfolio. Please feel free to make use of our question and answer facility throughout the presentation at the bottom of your screen. Without further ado, let me hand over to Hendrik to take you through the presentation. Over to you, Hendrik.
Great, thank you so much. Just quickly start sharing. Right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining in. I hope that you'll enjoy the webinar, and yeah, like we mentioned, you can just retain your questions till right at the end. So let's start off then. Shorrock Automation is an entity, quite a bit of time that we've been in the industry. We are the agents for the brands that you can see on screen. So starting from the left top, we have E1, which we will be discussing in depth today, of course. Then just below that is CP Electronics. CP Electronics used for lighting control and in order to control the lights for occupancy sensing, etc. Then we also the agents for a brand called Modular Next, which is a SCADA platform, typically used for SCADA applications. We do a lot of protocols within this environment as well. Anything from a typical SCADA of a building, for instance, up to HMI level of machines, etc. Then we also the agents for Proface, which is an HMI range. And then up top to the right, actually our biggest brand, which is the Embargo. So ranging anything from terminals, power supplies, UPSs, etc. Okay, without further ado, I'll jump into the E1 range of products. Okay, I'll just some brief information before I do that. So obviously, as introduced, my name is Hendrik Fourie. I'm Field Technical Sales Engineer here at Shorrock Automation. And then we are situated in Route 21 Corporate Park in Pretoria, or Centurion. Today's topic, remote data and access to your industrial equipment. As we mentioned, then just briefly the webinar agenda. Start off with secure remote access to your field-based equipment, then move over to remote data from the field-based equipment. Then we'll move over to custom web dashboards for status monitoring and control that E1 puts available for its users. Then we'll have a brief look at smartphones and PCs as quick access mediums, as well as move over to data migration to SQL databases and different cloud-based platforms that are available. And then we'll run through a quick application showcase, and right at the end, we'll then move over to the Q&A. All right, before I jump away at the product range of E1's portfolio, before I do so, E1 stands for Eyes Watching Over the Network. So that's what it's abbreviated for. And that's exactly what the product does for you. Is it permits you to have your eyes on a remote site whilst you are not there yourself or in person. Okay. So up top to the left, I'll start off then with a product called the E1 Cozy. So this device offers secure remote access So that could be remote access to a PLC or an HMI or a PC, any machine that you can imagine. Then moving up top over to the right, we have what we call the E1 Net Biter. So the E1 Net Biter also promotes remote access. The E1 Net Biter is more focused on gensets or asset management, where this device comes with a GPS functionality, and it also has a J1939 or CAN interface, typical applications such as your genset monitoring or mining vehicles, etc. Then to the bottom left, we have what we call the E1 Flexi. So this is our IoT gateway, and this will be the product in focus for today. So we're going to elaborate quite a bit on this product range in just a minute. And then just lastly, to the bottom right, we have what we call the E1 E5, which permits remote networks where you can create then multiple concurrent connections to different sites or different field-based devices at the same time, perhaps to bring all of that data into one centralized SCADA system. Okay, so first on, secure remote access to field-based equipment. Why would you want to make use of E1 for remote access? So it permits you to connect to your machine on a customer site. You'll be able to work as if you were on site over a secure encrypted link. And then you can make use of your customer's local network without any local IT changes. As we'll see in a moment, you don't necessarily have to make use of the plant internet on site. There are also GSM and other options available for internet access. So how does this all work? So here to the bottom right in green, we have a sample of a machine consisting of two PLCs, one connected on LAN and one on a USB connection, as well as an HMI and an IP camera. So before we move over to the remote access side of it, the E1 has the functionality to do a NAT one-to-one routing, where you could then access these different devices from the office network if required. Okay, so that could be on a different IP address due to the NAT one-to-one routing. Then more importantly, the remote access side of it works through the Talk2M Cloud, which is a free service offered to the E1 customers, where you have a firewall on both ends, and then you have two options of connecting to your machines on site. So the first being a interface or platform which we call eCatcher. So eCatcher is free to download. You install it on your PC. After setting up your account, you'll be able to create a secure VPN tunnel through the Talk2M Cloud to your field devices. This, of course, then for the remote maintenance side of things, doing maybe a PLC program change or updating something on an HMI. The second route is what we call M2Web. So the M2Web platform is purely web-based. This permits web visualization, remote desktop protocol for remote desktop connections, as well as VNC connections. Again, maybe to an HMI. So by making use of this, you could potentially access from any web browser, whether on a cell phone or a PC, a different PC to the one that might have eCatcher installed on it, and have or create a VNC connection to an HMI, where you could have the capability of controlling the HMI remotely as if you were to have stood in front of it. Okay, then the E1 or eCatcher side of things comes with a full connection audit trail. So this is a document that you can download in PDF format, and it contains a full audit trail of who connected, the date and time of connection, and then the duration of the connection. It also shows by which method or platform you connected, either M2Web or eCatcher. Then you can also deploy two-factor authentication. So with this is just an extra security layer added to your access or way of access, where it works similar to an OTP PIN that you typically would have gotten from your bank before you would confirm a payment to be made. So this occurs after your regular username and password or login and password details. It would pop up with the window, and then you would get an SMS on your cell phone, the 4-digit PIN that you need to insert before you could continue and gain access to your field devices. We boast that we have easy IT approval due to security certifications that we have in place. So E1 Talk to M is designed with a defense in depth approach, where multiple types of security mechanisms are in place across multiple layers of security controls. So just some of the layers mentioned here on the right-hand side. And we do have ISO 27001 certification as well as STAR compliance. The Talk to M security is regularly audited and then approved or kept up to date in terms of keeping the platform secure and your access to your devices secure. Of course, within the E1 or the eCatcher environment, you can create different account roles. So the first being the admin role. This person or entity could then add and remove E1s from the account. And then you could also add or remove users. On the user side, they won't be able to add and remove E1s, and you can limit access to certain devices or rights by using this methodology. Then the nice thing about all of this is that there are no hidden costs. So it's all based on the Talk to M Free Plus model. This has been in existence since 2006. It includes VPN cloud services all around the world. You get a free VPN client for both desktop and mobile. And it comes with an unlimited number of machines, devices, and users with no hidden costs. So you don't pay per E1 or per device that you add onto your account. It's also the chosen platform by 95% of E1's global customer base and includes lifetime free development updates. Okay. Then there is what we call a Talk to M Pro. So that's a Talk to M Pro account. This comes with a fixed annual cost then. It's mainly for end users and larger OEMs. So a typical example would be if you are serving, or if you are a machine builder and you are serving, let's say 15 or 20 companies, and you would have or would like to have one maintenance personnel sitting in an office doing constant support by means of an SLA, then you could have all of that on one Talk to M Pro account. Instead of having multiple free plus accounts, which is obviously also an option. So it just provides a bit more advanced user and access control, and it also permits multiple concurrent connections. Okay, so where with the Talk to M Free Plus account, you would have one concurrent connection to a machine at a time. The Talk to M Pro account permits by default 3 or more concurrent connections. So meaning 3 people could log in at a time to have remote support or access to the same machine or different machines. Okay. So in terms of setting up the device, it's a quick and easy wizard-based setup where you create your Talk to M account, configure your E1 through easy-to-use wizards, and then you're able to connect to your machine remotely. We're also recommended by the major PLC manufacturers, so all of the big brands here on the left. And we've been voted the #1 remote access solution provider now for 6 years running by the Reader's Choice Awards. Okay, it also motivates why it's a good product. Okay, so the next topic then is going to be remote data from field-based equipment. So now we move over to the Flexi range. So the Flexi inherently provides the remote access, although everything we've mentioned up to now, the E1 Cozy does as well. So this is more the IoT gateway side of things now. So apart from just remote access, the E1 Flexi range also then comes with pre-developed IO drivers at no extra cost. So of those, just to mention a few, Modbus over RTU or TCP, Unite iWay DF1 and Ethernet IP for your Allen Bradley devices, PPI, MPI, ISO TCP, Profibus for your Siemens devices, FINS, Hostlink, as well as TCP for your Omron devices. Then we also do Mitsubishi FX, Hitachi EH, ASCII, BACnet, as well as OPC UA. So this now permits communication with field-based devices and getting data or tags or variables into the E1 environment. By doing that, we are able to set up alarms where we can set up thresholds for a high or a low temperature or vibration or a certain Boolean bit, for instance, to generate an SMS or an email. We're also permitted to do historical logging. So we can also then log data in the E1's memory. And then later on, you'll see that we can export this recorded data to different platforms for further analysis. And we also have a built-in web HMI or web server that we use for dashboard display and status monitoring of remote field-based equipment. The E1 also then supports basic IDE, so it's a unique script or syntax that you can use to apply logic on your field-based equipment. So that's also some possibilities, as well as JavaScripts if required. Then the E1 Flexi range comes in 3 different base modules. The first being the Flexi 201, acting as an Ethernet switch, so 4 Ethernet LAN ports on it. Then we have the Flexi 202, 1 LAN port and 1 serial port. So perhaps if you want to do a serial to Ethernet gateway configuration, that's also possible, gaining remote access to devices that only have serial comms on them. We can also use this for Modbus RTU communication with different sensors or power meters, for instance. And then lastly, within this range is the Flexi 203, which then comes with a LAN and a built-in MPI or Profibus port for your Siemens devices. In terms of modularity, we have 4 expansion slots available for extension cards. Then just to the right-hand side, some examples of this. I'll take you through all of the available extension cards in a moment. Before I do so, another product within the Flexi 200 range is the Flexi 205. So immediately you'll see that this device is a bit more compact. This is specifically designed for machine builders where panel space is quite crucial. So it comes with all of the functionality I've mentioned for the Flexi 200 range. This is just a more modern and compact version of the 200 range as mentioned. So this device also comes with 4 Ethernet ports by default, 1 base module available, and these 4 ports are then configurable for LAN or WAN configurations. So if you would like to give the device internet from a plant-based Ethernet source, for instance. Okay, then just the dimensions briefly: 103 millimeters height, 122 millimeters depth, and 50 millimeters width. A DIN rail mountable device, powered by anything from 12 to 24 volt DC at 2.5 amps, and then an extended temperature range from -25 degrees Celsius up to 70 degrees Celsius. Also comes with a 3 years warranty. And then both the Flexi 200 as well as the 205 also has a SD card slot if you would like to expand on the memory. In terms of the available extension cards, we have firstly a Wi-Fi card, a 3G card, a 4G card, so meaning for SIM card support. Then WAN in terms of plant internet if required on a Flexi 201 to 203 model, or PSTN dial-up card if required, a dual serial card. So if you would like to add serial communication to a 205, you could perhaps consider such a card, as well as a USB card. Then we also have a modular I/O extension card, where this card then supports 8 digital inputs, 4 analog inputs, 0 to 10 or 4 to 20 milliamps, as well as 2 digital relay outputs. So this is typically used for standalone applications where you perhaps don't have a PLC, or you want to monitor something parallel to the PLC if that's a requirement. So this then permits direct interfacing to peripheral sensors, devices, etc. In terms of data acquisition on the Flexi, it comes with the pre-developed I/O drivers, like we mentioned, the data logging, and then alarming. So in terms of data logging and alarming, just some basic data export that can be used is by means of the export block descriptor, which then allows emailing of data such as graphs, CSV, and text file format, or HTML if required. So this could be used to set up a sort of a reporting structure to say once a week, once a month, we want some data, once a day on each shift, for instance, we want some data from the machine to see what happened in the previous shift that it was run on. You don't need to make any changes to your PLC code. Because we have the native driver support, you don't even have to stop your machine or your PLC. You configure the I/O server within the E1 device, and whereafter you then create up to a maximum amount of 2,500 tags in total, and also up to 1,500 tags per I/O server. So depending on how many different PLCs or brands you have on site, it will be dependent to or linked to either 1,500 tags per I/O server or 2,500 tags in total. We also support string tags, and in terms of historical logging, we can do up to 1 million timestamp points. Getting on to the custom web dashboards. For this, we use a program free to use and download again from E1's side called View On. So the View On environment permits us to create a HTML5 file that we deploy on the E1, and then we use its embedded web dashboard server to view the dynamic screens that View On creates for us. You can also create your own HTML5 files if you are a web developer. Monitoring with historical trends, alarm summaries, and live symbol templates are all made possible through the View On environment. And then we can make use of the M2Web service, like we mentioned earlier, to monitor these dashboards from our PC, smartphones, or tablets. Smartphones and PCs as quick access mediums. So as mentioned, M2Web, any browser which permits any device, anytime, any device. So this allows not opening of only web service, but also VNC and remote desktop connections. Then second to that, we also have an app for this functionality called eCatcher Mobile, available for both Apple and Android. Okay. You are also able to customize your M2Web portal if you would like to have your own company logo in here, for instance. In terms of KPIs or key performance indicators, the Flexi allows up to 6 of these tags to be selected as KPIs. And on the M2Web platform, these KPIs are then displayed also with color notification for alarm state. So for instance, blue is normal, orange would be a warning, and red would be an alarm state. Okay, then a quick brief demo. So I'm just going to jump over to my web browser, and then I'll show you the M2Web interface. So already I've customized our interface login to have our company logo displayed here. I'll just have to log in with my username and my password. And then after doing this, you'll see all of the different devices I then have within my environment. So for instance, I actually have 2 devices, or 2 E1s on my account rather. So the first being the Vago demo box, which is of course the device I have here to my left. Already you could see the KPIs displayed here. So I'm just going to simulate some values on the temperature and fill level so that you could see it's quite a live demo or a live data that's pulled through. Okay, so these are the KPIs. I'm just going to, for a moment, show you the actual View On page. So just a sample of that. So this is a web server, or the web HMI, that's accessible on the E1 device, created within the View On environment. Just going to show you 1 or 2 pages with data on to give you an idea of the visualization that's possible. So for instance, here I have a bit of visualization, just a tank draining from A to B. And then I can also switch on a stirrer with some indication. This could be a direct online motor or contactor that just pulls in to put on a stirring motor. And I could actually get some feedback from a solenoid valve to show that it has in fact opened. Okay. Just another brief example, tank level. So here I for instance, have a temperature as well as a fill level of a tank displayed. Just some simulated data there. I could also switch on a specific digital output bit on the E1's IO extension card. And then, so there I could see that I went now into an alarm, for instance, with the temperature that I put up to above 100 degrees Celsius. Here I have some historian data on my alarms. So for instance, in the last 24 hours, I could choose if I want to view for the last week or the last 30 days as well. I've had 5 temperature alarms, in fact 4. This just shows the end, so to say when it normalized again. And I could also acknowledge alarms from here. Then last but not least, just the trend on temperature. So in this case, I could actually trend or plot out the temperature of a tank level, for instance. So I'll just zoom in slightly here so that we can see the simulated data I just made or created for us. So I'll just hover over a point here and see that here at 10:25 it was at 46 degrees Celsius, and then it went up to a maximum of 120 degrees a minute later. Okay, so just some example data on that. I could also remotely stop and start an application. So if I click here on run, it would in fact start a counter within the PLC. It could, for instance, be to start the process, remotely stop and start the pump, for instance. So those are actually one of our use cases or applications that we come across quite a bit is customers that want to do remote stopping and starting of pumps and view some status monitoring, maybe view the power consumption of their pump station. Okay. And moving back into the presentation. Okay, so I've already showed all of that. So the E1 then also comes with the OPC UA server as well as the client service. So in this instance, we could connect over the native Iiot drivers to PLCs and HMIs that, for instance, don't support OPC UA, and then share this data as an OPC UA server to a Wonderware or a Moviconnect SCADA system, for instance, which would act in as a client. Or we could have the E1 act as an OPC UA client connecting to an OPC UA server, sharing data, and then take that data and historize it and maybe export to different cloud databases, which we'll get to in a moment. Okay, so this then, of course, a data migration to either SQL or different cloud-based platforms. So the E1, or the Talk2M cloud platform owned by E1, permits the use of 3 different services, again, free for use of E1's customers. So the first being a platform called Data Mailbox. So this permits data from various remote sites to be sent to the Data Mailbox cloud platform, where the data will then be buffered. And then by means of REST APIs, the historical data could then be fetched and interpreted or brought into a third-party ERP system, for instance. Second method is an M2Web portal, which permits live data, not historical data. And then the third method is via eSync, which then permits SQL interfacing. So that is now our historically logged data brought through different cloud-based platforms, or the Talk2M cloud-based platform rather. And from here, we can go and fetch it via an HTTPS request or via MQTT, basically REST APIs, and bring it into an ERP system, for instance, such as, let's say, SAP or Microsoft Azure, for instance. So speaking of which, some of the E1 IoT solution partners that we can bring data to. Just some examples: ThingWorks, SAP, Inductive Automation's Ignition, for instance. So all of these platforms available to bring data to. You're not limited to only E1 solution partners, of course, because we are open in the sense of MQTT or HTTPS data interpretation. Okay, in summary, E1 IoT Gateway, or the E1 Flexi as that, provides safe remote access to PLCs, HMIs, and PCs. It enables us to collect data from different field devices via the built-in I/O service. It provides performance monitoring through the use of KPIs, also proactive maintenance through alarm notifications in the sense of an SMS or email, even FTP. Seamless data transfer to different cloud databases are possible, and then a local data buffer also exists in case of communication loss. Lastly, OPC UA server and client capability as enabler for Industry 4.0. Okay, I know I'm running short on time here, so I'll just run through this briefly. Just an application showcase. Last year, we were approached by a company that does heat pump condition monitoring, or actually they produce the heat pumps, and they wanted a heat pump condition monitoring system. So in this example, we advised on the use of a Flexi 202, as well as a Vargo 3-phase power measurement module. By doing this, they were able to bring in data from their field equipment into a dashboard to see how much power their heat pump was drawing. So this heat pump supplies hot water to a tenant complex where there's, I think, almost 70 tenants actually. So instead of having individual geysers, they use a centralized heating pump, and then they could see their energy usage. By means of pulse input, we can do water consumption monitoring. And then on the analog inputs, we could take a thermocouple through a transducer to a 4 to 20 milliamp, for instance, and then see a temperature on site of the water. Of course, we can trend the active power consumption over time, as well as water consumption over time and temperature. And then they also have an alarm page to see, if any tags go into alarm, and they can get SMSs and emails from this. They also have an efficiency overview, because they know the power and water consumption. They know how much power they're using to produce 1 kiloliter of hot water. And then they have a linear calculation to give them an estimate of what it's costing them to produce this kiloliter of hot water for their tenants, for billing purposes, or getting an estimation on the billing side of things. Again, there are KPIs that they are able to see in their M2Web platform. And then they get a monthly email from site. So having all of the historically logged data sent to them on email. So in the case where you don't have the infrastructure, the platforms, or the budget to support cloud-based platforms, you can even just have raw data sent to you via email. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. I'll be handing back to the AATF team then.
Great, thanks very much, Hendrik, for that very informative presentation. We do have a couple of questions, which I will be taking you through shortly. Just a reminder to everyone to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to submit those questions, and we'll be answering them live. Also to note that the recording will be available on our YouTube channel via the website, should you need to go back and refer to anything. Great, so let's kick off with those questions. The first one, for which applications would you suggest the E1 Cozy, E1 Flexi, and or E1 NetBit gateway devices?
Okay, so the E1 Cozy, I would typically recommend on using in an application where you just want to get remote access. So that could be, you have a machine, you're a machine builder, you're sending the device to either Cape Town or, I don't know, 50 kilometers from your house, even, it makes sense. Or you're sending it overseas and you need to support this equipment. You don't want to drive there to do a call out. If they have a problem, you can either be notified via them, or you could actually set up on an E1 Cozy to get some feedback if there's, for instance, the PLC goes into a halt state. So that's for just remote maintenance purposes. Then the E1 Flexi could inherently also offer that functionality. But then if you want to get a bit more data and historization and alarming from your site, that would be a good solution for that, or a recommendation, as well as a status dashboard. The fact that you can monitor data from your cell phone or your PC from anywhere, also gives customers peace of mind to see, okay, I wasn't at site yesterday, but I could see that my machine was producing, or that my team was producing as they should have. Then lastly, the E1 NetBit asset management. So if you have a generator or a mining vehicle, for instance, or something that you rent out, any application where you want GPS tracking, as well as doing CAN or J1939 interfacing, that would be a good solution by making use of the E1 NetBit.
Great, thanks very much. Next question. Can you please repeat the difference between an M2 Web and the eCatcher Mobile?
Okay, so M2 Web is web-based. So whether you use your Safari, Opera Mini, what are the others, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer. So any of those where you go to the M2 Web URL, and then you are able to log in and view your KPIs, view the dashboards. You can even do the VNC connection from there. Okay, the M2 Web platform allows up to 5 people to do so on the Talk to M3 Plus model. And then on the Pro account model, there are no limits in terms of the number of people that could access it simultaneously. Then moving over to eCatcher Mobile. So eCatcher Mobile actually opens up a VPN tunnel the same way that eCatcher does for our PCs. So this permits us to have a physical connection to the device, not only a proxy connection that the M2 Web permits, where we could use it in conjunction with, for instance, Siemens's Smart Server Client or Schneider's Video Design Air, in instances where you want to actually do a VPN tunnel to your field-based equipment from a mobile device.
Great, thanks, Hendrik. The next question, are the client applications running on the E1 device customizable? For example, the data format for MQTT brokers is unique for different platforms, and it would be good to format the data the E1 then sends out.
Yes, so all of that is possible. In terms of the MQTT section, we have quite a bit of information on the HMS or E1's tech forum as well. Just to answer the question actually is that yes, it's fully customizable within the basic IDE script environment. You can alter the format in which data is sent, as well as send data to different MQTT brokers. So you're not limited to only certain platforms or doing it in a certain way. It's actually quite open.
Okay. The next question, through which interfaces can the KPI values be displayed?
Okay, so the KPIs, again, just for rephrasing that, so the key point indicators, up to 6 are available. So that would be your most critical tags. So for instance, a temperature, a start or stop state, a production output state. That data can both be displayed on the M2 web platform as well as the eCatcher mobile versions. So the moment you log into M2 web or eCatcher mobile, you'll be met with the 6 KPIs. Yeah, so that provides then live data feedback from your remote machines without even having to create a ViewOn live dashboard. So in many cases, customers, without going onto ViewOn or creating their own dashboards, deploy the KPIs as a, from deploying the machine on site and having the E1 there, you could within a few minutes actually have a remote dashboard viewing your 6 most critical tags of a machine.
Great. What are the tag limitations on the E1 Flexi range?
Great. So that will be 2,500 tags in total for the E1 Flexi. Also limited to then 1,500 tags per IO server. So just to distinguish between those two, I'm just going to put out an example. For instance, if you have a site that has 2 or 3 Siemens devices, Siemens PLCs, as well as 2 Allen Bradley or even another brand brand devices, then you could potentially from the Siemens devices bring in up to 1,500 tags, and then from whichever other IO service you use, let's say Allen Bradley and Omron, a combination, you could then you're then limited to make use of 1,000 further tags on those 2 IO servers. So then you could share them maybe 500 on the one IO server and 500 on another IO server. So 2,500 tags in total, 1,500 tags per IO server.
Great. What are the different methods of supplying internet to your devices?
Okay, so that would be depending on what your customer requires. We have the option to bring in plant internet. So that would be a physical Ethernet line from the customer side. So that's option 1. Option 2 would be Wi-Fi. So if they have Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi hotspot available, then you could connect to that via Wi-Fi, making use of a Wi-Fi card. And then we have the 3G and the 4G options. So 3G, obviously been in existence for quite some time. Just slot in your SIM card and connect to the closest, ISPs, the tower. The second option, 4G, just permits a bit of a faster bandwidth. So in applications where you want to harvest quite a bit of data and maybe want to do live video streaming, which is possible to an IP camera, for instance, then the 4G might be a bit faster in response as it can handle a bit better bandwidths. So to reiterate, Wi-Fi, Ethernet or WAN as we call it, 3G and 4G.
Okay, on to the next question. Can you post the data to a remote database to use on a live website, not just the IIoT interfaces?
Yes, so we can do HTTPS export as well. So I believe that should answer the question. By making use of the data mailbox service, when you do make use of the REST APIs, you get the data back in .json or JSON format. So for guys that do web development, it's not a difficult thing to sort through that data and, for instance, create a table or create their own trends. We actually have a few customers that prefer doing that, because then they're not linked or dependent on IoT platforms, but rather they have their own system in place.
Okay, what is the maximum amount of log points on the E1 Flexi range?
Okay. So the E1 has 3 different memory organization ticks that you can select. So by default, it's at about 333,000, if I have to estimate that, per log points. And then you can set it up to a 1 million timestamped log points logging. Yeah, so that's up to 1 million timestamped log points. Of course, after the 1 million log points are filled, it will just start to do a FIFO, or first in, first out, meaning rewriting your oldest data. So not your latest, or it won't go full and ask for memory expansion. It will just start to do a FIFO buffer.
Okay, how long has Shorrock Automation been supporting E1 in South Africa?
It's been more than 10 years, and we actually have a lot of different customer bases. We have a lot of applications running. So at any given stage, if you're looking at deploying such a device, we're welcome to contact us, and we can share some references on the projects that we have deployed and customers that we have using the devices for different industries.
Okay, how many devices can I connect for free to my account before I have to pay a license fee?
Okay. So the answer is that to that is unlimited. So you're not limited to a certain number of E1s per account or number of machines per account in any way. So that is all limitless on a Talk to M3 Plus account even. So we, as opposed to many other, I would say, competitors of ours, offer a solution where you have to pay per device that you add onto your account, where we don't do that at all.
Great, that's great to hear. Can data be sent from the PLC to a third-party cloud solution from the E1?
Yes. So I think that's the last slide we actually took care of, where we can have data brought into the E1 via the native IO drivers, the Modbus, the ISO TCPs, the Ethernet IP native drivers, or OPC UA, and then we can export that data via the data Mailbox cloud interface, or via direct HTTPS send and receive requests to bring the data then into a third-party cloud-based platform. It doesn't have to be a cloud-based. It could also be a stationary SCADA system somewhere, where you would want to bring that data in to visualize it, maybe trend it on there, do automated reports in the sense of PDFs, the reports that you're sending out weekly, etc. So yes, all of that's possible.
Great, thanks, Hendrik. We're on to the last question. If you use internet to device for remote VPN connection and the internet is cut, does it automatically switch over to the 3G connection if you have the card on the unit?
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, or I'm going to answer it as I understand it, we have the option to do a fallback, so that if you are by default giving internet to the device via a WAN or plant internet, and the internet on that line would fall away, you could set up a 3G modem on it to have a fallback internet source. So yes, then it will automatically switch over to 3G, and then you would just continue with your VPN session. So the E1 in its own right will switch between the internet sources if you set up the fallback option. So it's not difficult to do. It's just, again, part of the wizard-based setup. And then you can choose your primary and your secondary internet media source.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Hendrik. I think that was really interactive, and we got a lot of questions. What I've done is I've posted an email address in the chat. If you have any further questions that you may want to ask after this or that may come up later, you can contact Shorrock directly, or you can contact one of our team members who can pass it on to the Shorrock team. So thank you very much for attending our 10th AATF Technology Tuesday, and thank you to Hendrik and the Shorrock Automation team for such an informative and knowledge sharing session. We'd like to remind everybody that we do have another session on Thursday as the AATF Technology Thursday, which is Shorrock again, and is a follow-on from this session. So don't miss that. Make sure you pre-register to attend that. And we'll see you again on Thursday at 10 a.m. Keep well, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.